Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm back down here at the church. I gotta get up there in the belfry and I gotta get some better measurements and try to come up with a plan on how I'm gonna pick that bell up and actually the whole thing. And I found out that I said some things before that were completely wrong. So I'm educating myself, and we'll get up there and I'll show you what I'm talking about, and we'll see where that takes us. But first I was out front here again the other day, and I noticed something, and I wanted to show you a little bit more about, well, what I think is the history of the building, and I'm going to dig into that a little more and see. But let me show you what I mean. This is the gate out in front of the building on Main Street. They say 1876 on them. Oh, I had forgotten that years ago I welded that back together. That's still there, I guess. But anyways, the gates say 1876. The bell, if you remember, said 1863, which is during the Civil War. This is after the Civil War. So it leaves me to wonder, I'm gonna head in now, I'll talk while I walk. It leaves me to wonder if the bell may have been bought for and maybe even installed in the church building that was here before this one. And that's an interesting story. As I've heard it anyways, there was a church built here, a wooden church, exactly the same to the detail, I guess, as the white wooden church that's built in Salem, New York, which is the next town over. And both churches were built about the same time, identical buildings. This one that sat on this lot was finished or nearly finished, and on 4th of July that year, some kids, well, I shouldn't say kids, maybe it was adults, I don't know, somebody had some fireworks go off and lit the church, not funny, they lit the church on fire, burned it to the ground. And I'm wondering now if, because the bell is older than those gate, of course the gates may have just been added later, I guess, but it makes me wonder if maybe the bell was in the original building. I'm gonna have to look. I'm sure they have record of it. I'll find out, and I'll let you know in another episode when I get more into this. I'll keep trying to fill in the blanks on the history there, but I just thought that was kind of interesting that the two don't coincide. Certainly the gates, I guess, could have been a project that was later on down the road, but I think you'd normally have them cast with the year that the building, even if it was years later, you'd say, you know, it was established in whatever year or something like that. Anyway, I got some more tools here. This time I'm gonna get back up in the belfry and get some measurements, and we'll talk about it more when I get up there. Hey, we're back up here in the belfry. I've got a little better lighting. I brought some better measuring tools, and I also brought a couple trash bags. First thing I'm going to do is clean up, try to get rid of some of this straw and stuff, and then I got to get some measurements on what I might need to rig this thing to hold the bell up. And then I got to get some better measurements here, and I've already looked it over again, and yeah, on a closer examination, I think as normal. I may have really stepped in it, because I think what I need to do is to cut these are I'm going to do some better measuring, but I think these are quite out of round, so there's really no good way of doing it with a bushing. So I think what I'm going to have to do is cut these stubs off, which isn't too bad because this piece unbolts. I mean, it's been bolted together for 100 years, 130, 40, I don't know, math, numbers, no, it's over 100 years, and I don't know if that's gonna come apart or not, but by rights I should be able to prop the bell up, get it stable, unbolt this, take just this piece. I should be able to cut this off, machine this, you know, bore right through here, machine this out, make a new axle, press it in there and weld it, and it'll be as good as new. And I'm also thinking, if I'm going, this is how these projects go, they snowball. So I'm thinking, if I'm gonna do that and make that nice and round, why wouldn't I put it on modern ball bearings? They're not expensive. You can grease them occasionally, and they will, I mean, they'll last another 100 years at least, you know, probably more for the amount this gets used. So kind of thinking maybe it might be wise to do a little more, make the project a little bigger, of course, and make this thing so it's 100%, you know, no question, it's good to go for another 100 years. That's kind of the gist of what I'm after. I also want to assess this wooden wheel, because if I am going to take it apart, see, here we go, if I'm going to take that off over there to put a new axle on it, I have to take the wheel off, and maybe it should be sturdied up, you know. You can see it's been kind of, it's had some pieces scabbed on over the years, and it's doing its job, there's no issue, but maybe I can get somebody who is more into woodwork type projects to take a look at it, because you know what I just realized is that wheel isn't going to fit through that hole, not in a million years. So, oh, and by the way, remind me not to step right there. If you see me heading over that way, give me a yell and stop me so I don't, you know, go into the abyss. But yeah, so if that wheel's gonna get fixed, that will have to be done up here, which makes it, you know, if a guy can lay it on his workbench, he can do a lot more than coming up here. The parts I need to work on, I can take off, take with me, bring them back, reinstall them, and I think we're gonna be good to go. So what I'm thinking now is I take this cap off, I make a plate that'll bolt with these two bolts and is tapped to accept a modern roller bearing. All that's going to do is it'll raise the bell up, you know, maybe an inch or two, and it'll sit, you know, the center of that will be maybe here. Do both sides. I'll you know, all the original parts, I'll wire them to it here somewhere so they don't get lost, and you know, it'll all still be complete. It'll just be a little bit updated, you know. You know, I'm always torn with something like this. Do you want it to not be original? But I'll tell you, to make this originally it most likely had poured Babbitt. Somebody reminded me of that. This thing probably had poured Babbitt bearings, because back then, you got to remember when this was, they didn't do a lot of precision machining if they didn't need to. So pouring Babbitt was much better. Pour it in place. You'd block the bell up, center this shaft in the bore here. You'd build some dams around here, you know, probably just a wooden block or whatever, and then you'd pour the Babbitt in here, and you'd make the bushing in place, sort of. I'm certainly not going to that level of restoration, because I've seen Babbitt poured, but I've never done it myself, and I don't. It's not that I don't want to learn, it's just that this thing has gotten big enough already. So to me, it's always, you know, are we restoring it? It certainly deserves to be restored, but in order to restore it, I'd have to it'd be even harder, and the finished product won't be as good. Not that there's anything wrong with this. This has served its life very well, but you can see that Babbitt, not only is it gone, or bushing, whatever it was, not only is it gone, but it's been gone for a long, long time. So it would have to be redone every maybe 50 years, I don't know, in order to keep it working correctly, keep from wearing these out again and all that stuff. So I'm thinking if we modernize it a bit, a ball bearing that's lubricated, that's greased even once every 5 years, this thing's gonna last a long time, and it's probably gonna swing easier than it did brand new, easier than a Babbitt bearing. So that's where my head's at. Gonna try to figure some things out. Hopefully I can come out of here with this thing being relatively clean and somewhat of a plan. Now, I had thought that all this straw, all this straw has to be from birds, but the thing that gets me is there's very little bird dropping in here. If there were pigeons able to get in here, this would be a disgusting mess. And when you look around, it's really pretty clean. There's really no droppings up here, so I don't know where the heck the straw came from, but I brought some garbage bags. It's probably been here a long time. I'm gonna try to clean up as best I can and come up with a plan of action. Okay, so kind of like I was suspecting, these guys are so out of round, anything I do would be kind of a cob job. And I'm thinking it deserves better than that. So I think we're gonna do like I said. We're gonna cut these off, these axles, make some new ones, put them in there. We'll make some blocks to adapt this over to a modern ball bearing. Put it back together. While it's apart, I gotta see if anybody can work on this wooden wheel. It's not bad, it's just a little wobbly. You can see it's been kind of scabbed over the years with pieces, and they're doing their job. It's all right. Just would be nice since it's apart if it could be a little bit better. And I did discover that underneath the bell here, this great big square, is another door. So that explains how you get these things up and down. But that wheel must have come up first, because it won't fit through, along this edge. It has to go diagonal to fit through that opening. So that means you'd have to have the bell off to the side. So they must have brought the wheel up, set it aside, and brought all the other stuff up and put it here. Or perhaps they brought all this stuff up before the steeple was done, and put it here, and then just built that hole for knowing that later on somebody might need to take the bell down out of here to work on it or something. But so that's kind of interesting. That's a whole nother door. You can see I took two great big 55-gallon garbage bags of straw out of here, and I've only scratched the surface, really. I think it all better come out of here, because it's got to be, making the floor underneath rot. I think this whole floor is covered with tin, because technically this is a roof. It needs to shed, if the water does blow in, it needs to shed the water, not let it down into the building. So this is all, I guess, was built to be treated like a roof. So I'll very carefully clean most of that stuff off there, at least, to try to preserve that tin that's under there. But that's my plan. I'm just trying to think scheduling wise, if it's possible that I could come up here on a Monday after work, tear this thing apart, and have it done for the next Sunday so they don't have to miss a week. I think probably that's possible. It's really pretty simple, other than the fact that it's all super old and hasn't been apart in forever. So that might be challenging, but it really doesn't look that bad. I think that's doable, as long as I make sure I've got all my ducks in a row before I get started. So if you want to call it a plan, okay, you can do that. That's the plan for right now. I figured out what I need for blocking. I think what I can do is lay a couple blocks across the spanning that base, and then build up with some blocking, and then use wedges, and maybe get that bell picked up enough just with wedges. If not, we'll have to use more cribbing and use a bottle jack. That I know will work. So when I say we, I mean me. Maybe I can get somebody to help me. That's possible. I've got some amazing friends that like to do weird and interesting things. So we'll see what transpires, but hopefully the next time you're up here, this is going to be cleaner-ish, and maybe this will be cribbed up and ready to come apart. Still really thinking long and hard about that ringer. Oh, and I had mentioned earlier, I almost forgot. I hate to admit when I'm wrong, but I had mentioned earlier that I had said some things that were completely wrong. So I did the first video about the bell, and then I went and I used the Google machine and learned some things about bells. First of all, this bell is not supposed to spin while it rings, but it definitely is spinning while it rings. There's no question about that. But I did learn that they are not supposed to. Also learned that there's that leather pad that's supposed to be riveted up there. I don't know if that shows well on video, but right up in here, that's what's left of a leather cushion. And they say that is pretty important. You're supposed to have that cushion there to help preserve the bell. It cushions the blow. So I got to think about that. I think, I'm glad I remembered, because I wanted to look at this. If I take out that rusty wire that somebody wrapped around there, that pin should come out, and then once that pin's out, the clapper comes off, and I think this, I don't know, I may have to, that may not come out without taking this big nut off and actually unfastening the bell, which is, well, it's a leap of faith, and I don't know if I'm ready to take it. But anyways, somehow I should try to get the leather replaced on those. Oh, I like that. Good thing I'm not afraid of the dark. And another thing I was completely wrong about was this hour toll ringer. I had said that you put it in here and it strikes the inside of the bell, and that was completely not right, because what you do is you swing the bell out of the way and you bring this ringer to the outside, and then when you want to ring the bell, gravity actually rings the bell. You just let it fall, it strikes the outside of the bell out here, and then you'd pull the rope to pull it back away from the bell. So you'd park it away from the bell and then let go of it, and it would crash into the bell. So that's how that works, and that actually makes it a lot easier to automate it, I think. So I was completely wrong about that. Completely wrong about the bell spinning. That was me guessing just by what I was seeing, and I was way off base. So I apologize. Didn't mean to mislead you. and I wanted to make sure I corrected myself. So believe me, I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm willing to prove it. All right, I'm gonna get down out of here. The next time, hopefully this will be cleaned up and ready to come apart, or maybe I won't even make a video until I have these parts in the shop and I'm ready to do some machining, whatever. We'll see how that goes. But we're gonna get going. Spring is coming, and I gotta have, these projects need to be done, because once spring hits, it's too busy. All right, stay tuned for the next step in this adventure. We'll see where this takes us. I got thinking maybe I should talk to somebody at the church and see if they're okay with me tearing their bell apart. Yeah, it's probably a good idea. I'll do that. Thanks for spending your time with me. I appreciate it. Make sure you tell your friends. They need to be watching The Town Tinker. It's like The Village Idiot. No, it might just be The Village Idiot. People are beginning to talk. God bless you. God bless the United States of America.